Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. And today we're going to talk about a 1911A1 that isn't. Before we get into that, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. This all costs money and your contributions help more than you know. So thank you very much. If you'd like to join my supporters on Patreon, there's a link in the description below. I'd also like to thank channel benefactors like the collector who loaned me this pistol to show to you. And channel benefactors are listed at the end of the video. These are people and businesses who have been helpful to the channel with the use of their facilities, donations of ammunition or other supplies, and just generally been good folks. So, in 1914, Argentina decided they liked the look of the 1911, and they ordered a few hundred of them, a little over 300. And they liked them a lot. They were simple, robust, they worked well, and they had confidence in the caliber. So they ordered more and got them, and were happy with those too. But in 1923, Argentine law specified that vital defense items had to be made in country. And so the Argentinians talked to Colt, and Colt agreed to set up a factory in Argentina, bring their employees down, and train Argentinians to make 1911s, 1911A1s actually. And they made about 10,000 of them, after which the rights, blueprints, machinery, and everything was given over to the Argentine government so that they could continue to produce their favored service pistol. And production slowed down, stopped for a while, I'm not sure which, but in 1945, they began full production of the Model 1927, is what they call it, but it's a 1911A1. And the parts are fully interchangeable with a 1911A1 because these are a 1911A1. And they continued in production until 1960. And they have come into this country as surplus guns in several waves since that time. This is a gun made in 1946, and it has not been re-arsenaled. The re-arsenaled guns were sandblasted and parkerized, which softened their lines, making them look like a custom melted 1911. This one still has the nice sharp lines, the nice factory bluing, and it's a pretty interesting gun. Let's have a look at it on the tabletop. So, being basically a GI 1911, it's a big, heavy gun. Has the standard 7-round magazine, so 7 plus 1 capacity is 8 rounds. It has typical awful GI iron sights, and the hammer specifically designed to produce scars like this one by biting pieces of my flesh off. And it's a well-made gun. It's consistent with military quality guns made in the United States, certainly. And the markings, DGFM is the factory, which is under the FMAP, which is the federal authority for producing military weapons in Argentina at the time. There are a couple of very small differences between this and a GI 1911. And one of them is this knurling on the arched mainspring housing, which actually is wonderful. It provides great grip, good traction, and similar knurling, although much smaller, on the trigger, which I am completely indifferent to. Trigger pull is 5 or 6 pounds, about what you'd expect. And there's really not a lot to do in the tabletop here because it's a GI 1911. Now, something about the Sistema Colt guns, as these were called, is the serial number on the frame is the only identifying mark of any kind on the frame. The slide is also serial numbered, the barrel, and this gun is all original. And it says Sistema Sistema Colt, caliber 11.25 millimeter, model 1927. There's the government acceptance stamp of the Argentine Armed Forces. And it's really all there is to see in the way of markings. And it is exactly what you'd expect. Now, they do have black plastic grips, all of them, which was not always the case on American GI 1911s. But yeah, it's basically bog standard. I will make a note that this military style safety I actually find superior to the civilian safeties for my hand, because I like to ride the safety, and the arched civilian style actually kind of digs into my thumb a bit here, which is why I tend to relieve that area when I'm doing a 1911 or 2011. So there you have it, in all of its utterly bog standard simplicity. Very nice gun. Now, having a complete, all-original, not re-arsenaled one of these is quite a coup for a 1911 collector, because when they were imported, they were cheap, and people used them to base competition pistols, target pistols, race guns on. Why not? It was cheap, and it's basically a solid gun. And I actually have a 9mm race gun built on one of these Sistema Colt frames, and it's, near as I can tell, it's fine. But a lot of them were stripped, a lot of them were converted, so it's pretty neat to see one in its original form on the one hand. On the other hand, it's just a GI 1911 A1, but very cool. Now, I did attempt to test fire this and discovered that its reputation for feeding nothing but ball ammunition is justified. It wouldn't feed any manner of hollow points or anything other than standard GI ball. It didn't even like 200 grain round nose bullets. But that's what it was made to use, so I can't really fault it for that. Of course, this is not my gun, so I wasn't going to modify it to make it feed them. I think my collector friend would have been very upset with me had I tried to do that. But it's just a cool piece of history, and like I said, you don't often see them in full original form unmolested, especially not in as good a shape as this one. Now, over the years, there were a lot of rumors, gun show mythology about these guns. No, they were not made with steel salvaged from a Nazi warship scuttled in shallow water. That's the most common one I hear. It is absolutely not true. These are actually made with steel to Colt's original 1927 specification that was imported from several different companies in Europe primarily. So they are not inferior steel by any means. They are not salvaged steel. They're just to the heat treat and specification of the original Colt 1911 A1, which is not as good as we do now, generally speaking. So much for that rumor. Also, this is not similar to the Ballester Molina, also made in Argentina, that looks a lot like these guns, but has serious mechanical differences. It was sort of a second standard issue gun, and hopefully I'll show you one of those and we can chat about that and talk about the differences. So, anyway, cool gun. That's it for this time. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.